We all saw Florida State go down to Georgia Tech. It was the first upset to kick off the 2024 college football season, and Georgia Tech exposed some major problems with Florida State this year. The most obvious one is that Florida State obviously doesn't trust DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback. Their game plan offensively against Georgia Tech was really conservative and pedestrian. They wanted to run the football and not ask DJU to have to win the game by himself. And unfortunately, after the first drive for FSU, Georgia Tech completely erased the ground game from FSU's arsenal, and they forced this team to become one-dimensional. And when they were asking DJU to throw the football, they weren't asking him to take too many shots deep. And once we got into halftime, there was a really ugly stat line that DJU posted. He was 12 of 14 and had negative 0.1 air yards. And that shows you the lack of faith and trust that Florida State's coaching staff has, not only in DJ Uiagalelei's ability to throw the football, but their whole entire passing attack. They're lacking talent and depth at wide receiver. Their offensive line isn't that good in pass protection. And with the lack of faith that we saw in DJU against Georgia Tech from this FSU coaching staff, that's pretty much a key tell to show you that they don't have faith that they can be able to be balanced on offense. If Florida State is going to replicate the year that they had in 2023, they need this rushing attack to carry the load for this offense. And they got a lot of great backs on that team. They're like three guys deep at that position. And with how good their offensive line is at creating holes in the run game, them being able to win, being a run-first team, is definitely something that has a great chance of being able to happen if you can get better quarterback play out of DJ Uiagalelei. But the thing with DJU is that Seminole fans were coming into this season already knowing that this dude wasn't that good. How he played against Georgia Tech wasn't a surprise if you watch DJU the last 3 to 4 years that he's been playing college ball. He's somebody that he makes bad decisions with the football occasionally. He has a great arm. He can throw the football with the best of them, but his accuracy is very hot and cold in certain stretches of games, and you got to cross your fingers anytime you have to play from behind with DJU at quarterback, because he's not the kind of player that is going to be able to carry you to a win consistently. There's going to be some games where he may be able to make a couple of big throws to keep you in the ball game, maybe potentially win it, but he also is going to have moments where the game's on the line and he's going to choke. And with DJU playing quarterback for the Seminoles this year, every game is going to be like what you saw against Georgia Tech. It's going to be close. It's going to be a dogfight. The only teams that Florida State are going to beat by multiple possessions this year are the crappy teams that they have on their schedule. Let's say they play one of those jabroni teams from the FCS that you paid to blow out, or if they play a lower tier team in the ACC this year. Those are the teams that Florida State is going to dominate because they can run the football at will against them. But when they go up against quality teams like Georgia Tech, SMU, Miami, they're going to struggle to be able to win those games because DJU isn't that good in those big time matchups. At Oregon State last year, against all the top 25 teams they played up against, he never completed once over 60% of his passes in any of those matchups. When you look at the film of DJU against Georgia Tech, you see somebody that Florida State put a lot of shackles on him because they didn't want to ask him to do too much, because they know when you put too much on DJU's plate, he ends up not being able to deliver for you, and you need to have a good supporting cast around him to help pull him up. He's a capable quarterback if you got an elite team around him. Florida State doesn't have that kind of team. This team was extremely overrated all this offseason. Too many people were judging this year's FSU team solely based off the season that they had last year. But you can't base Florida State and what they are this year solely based off one of the best seasons that they had in over a decade. Because for me to see you as a consistent 10-win plus program, you got to show that you can win 10 games more than just one time. It has to be consistent. You got to go 2-3 straight seasons being able to win double-digit games before you can be claimed as a lock to be a 10-win plus program every year. Florida State doesn't recruit at that level. Last year, their recruiting class was ranked 13th in the nation. To be one of those programs to avoid having to rebuild like what they're going to do this year, you got to recruit at a way higher level than what you're doing right now. When you are a portal-heavy team, that's good if you want to have a good one-off season. But a lot of teams that rely heavy on the portal to assemble their rosters, they normally end up having a big decline the following year. Remember Mel Tucker that year early into his Michigan State tenure where they went to the New Year's Six Bowl and they beat Pittsburgh? They were led by Kenneth Walker that season. When Kenneth Walker left and a lot of those portal players from that season were gone as well, you saw Michigan State regress and eventually Mel Tucker got fired. Year one, Lincoln Riley at USC. They won 11 games. The following year, they had 7 wins, which is the worst season that Lincoln Riley has ever had as a head coach. Assembling your team through the portal is not sustainable if that is the basis of how your team is constructed. You got to have a good mix of recruiting to go along with utilizing the portal well to be able to sustain success with this model. Florida State hasn't developed a quarterback that they've gotten solely through recruiting. And with DJ U now, you're hoping that this coaching staff and Mike Norvell are good enough and have bright offensive minds that are high enough to help be able to do something that no other coach DJ U has played under has been able to do, and that's help him reach that next level. This guy was the #1 quarterback prospect out of his recruiting class years ago. He was rated over CJ Stroud. He was a 5-star QB coming out of St. Bosco. I remember watching QB1 Beyond the Lights a few years ago, and they were following around this dude named Real Mitchell. And Real Mitchell eventually got benched his senior season in favor of DJ U. And the dude was a baller in high school. And from a physical standpoint, he has all the tools to be great. Great arm, pretty good athlete. But he hasn't been able to put it all together. And at this point, you're in like your 10th season of playing college football. You are what you are at this point. And your supporting cast isn't Georgia or Ohio State level to help improve him and help carry him. So FSU is at an extreme disadvantage with the fact that you don't have a quarterback, or you have a quarterback who you can't trust in big moments, and you don't have a dude who's transcended enough to carry you to a win when everything else around him is going awry. Remember Bryce Young's couple of seasons at Alabama? He carried Bama. We've never seen an Alabama quarterback as good as what Bryce Young was. Anytime he had a chance to win the game for Bama and he was on the field, he always came through. DJ U doesn't have that same aura. When you look at DJ U, you're like, dude, like, you're mid at best. You feel me? Sometimes he has his moments, but FSU this year, it's pretty evident they don't trust DJ U, and you just wonder how many games can they skate by with him at QB. They're not going to be garbage, but they're not going to be as good as what they were last year. There's going to be a good amount of games that they win that are going to be really close, because that's the kind of QB DJ U is. He won't outright lose you a game per se. He won't get you blown out, but he definitely is going to make every win a heart-wrenching game, And they're going to be close wins that Florida State's going to have due to his inconsistency, versus if you had a better quarterback, then you probably dominate a lot of the schools who you probably struggle to beat this year. There's a good chance maybe they lose to Boston College next week.